This is the Lenz standard decoder. It's item number 10231-02. It is an 8-pin, so NEM652 decoder with a lead, and they can either be used as a plug-in decoder or soldered in, depending on the model that it's going into. It's a fully DCC NMRA compliant decoder, so it will work with any DCC digital system, and it's a very good quality and well priced decoder. So in this film I've been set an interesting challenge to install the 8-pin decoder into Bachmann's Class 4 MT. Absolutely beautiful loco, but there is a challenge involved, so once we get it out the box I'll show you what's going on. So we have the model, and it's a gorgeous model. I do love the proportions of these large tank locos, and we'll have a look. Right here is the speedo drive, which is attached to some quite large parts here that have been glued on, which is a bit of a shame. So the job is to get that screw out so that we can remove the body without breaking the speedo drive. It's a challenge. Well, challenge accepted for the moment. So I've just run the loco so that I could stop the crank at the bottom so the screw's more accessible. Now, from previous experience, these screws are very solidly in. They're very difficult to unscrew without putting a lot of force on the loco, so I'm going to try some penetrating oil, our old friend, which we need to be careful with. Never apply it directly to the loco. We only want it to go where we're going to put it on, so what I'm going to do is spray it onto a screwdriver and then apply the oil to where I want it to actually go. Much has been said about lubricating oil elsewhere. I'm not going to get into the intrigue of it all, but less is usually better. So I've left it for a couple of minutes and it seems to have worked its way in. It's probably best not to do this with a camera in the way. It's becoming my catchphrase. It really has helped this screw come out easily. Right, there we are. Now that's free. Okay, now it's definitely time to get the manual out. So in the locomotive manual there's 5 screws that hold the body on, 2 at the back under the cab, 2 in the middle just behind the first axle I think, and 1 right at the front. So come round. This is the very front one, that's the easiest one to locate. Two middle ones are right down in here, so between the 2 wheels you can just see them. Camera probably can't, but I can see them glinting in there. One on that side, and one on this side. And then, rather than boring you intensely, I'll just point out the 2 rear ones here and here, and we'll take those out off camera. It's worth noting that the two shortest screws are the ones out to the back, and there's one long screw there that comes out to the front. The other two are sort of medium length and they're still in the loco at the moment. But we have come across another challenge. So, as we're pulling out the chassis, this block of pipework here is attached to the chassis and to the bottom of the tanks. So there's two mounting points here, and the bracket here seems to be on the chassis. So I'm just going to work out which is best part to remove, and we can go from there. So my favourite would be to actually just demount this bracket here. So just down between the chassis and the bracket where that knife is, I think we need to demount that from the chassis. Otherwise all this is just pulling that back in a bit. So during manufacture it appears that a tiny bit of glue has got down between here and the chassis, and now in fact I think it sits in that slot, so it's just a really tight fit in that slot. Okay, so we're now free, he says optimistically. There we go. Oh, wasn't that bad, honest. And we find the socket, which is the whole point of opening this loco in the first place. Inspecting the cross piece there, yeah, there's definitely been a bit of glue applied during manufacture, and that's where it was glued. Bit unfortunate, but it's come off okay with just a little bit of tender levering, and that will go back in okay. Right, the big thing here is not to put the loco down so that we break that speedo drive, which is the whole point of this exercise. Okay, so we have the main DCC socket up here, which we'll just pull out. Just trying to see if there's any markings on here that tell me which is the pin. I think, yeah, it's number 1 just here. So pin 1 is at the front here on the left hand side of the loco. Okay, so pin 1 on the Lenz standard is the orange cable, so that comes through to here. So we put it in this way round, and then there's a slot here that the, oops, sorry, move the camera, a slot here that the decoder will sit in. So we'll need to coil up the wire a bit and then push the decoder down into that slot, and then we can get the body back on. What I'll do is loop the wires back so that most of the wires sit down in that slot. Okay, just a quick note on locating the decoder safely. So that slot, it's all plastic parts. I've just had a closer look, there's nothing metal in there that it can touch. Lenz advise against wrapping the decoders. They've got to be allowed free air around them to allow them to cool. I'm going to begin putting the body back on. We want to just make sure that these wires aren't caught. So we'll just tease them in. There we go. Start pushing that down. Engage that bracket again in its slot. This we will screw back on in a bit. And then we'll do the reverse process with the screws. So the 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 will get back in. Got the screws in here. One of them's still in the loco, in fact. medium length screws go in the middle, the longest single screw goes at the front, and the two short ones go at the back. It's worth noting that particularly for screws that are very deep within a loco, so we've got to go in and through a long way, they don't tend to be greatly magnetic. They're slightly magnetic, but they will have a horrible tendency just to fall off into the mechanism when you're trying to do that. So something like Tacky Wax, a deluxe product, I think that's that stuff, will help the screw adhere to your screwdriver, so you're less likely to drop it in where you can't get it out. There we go. And it's a long screw, there we are. Right. So I've lined up the speedo drive. It goes to the dead centre, so you shouldn't have it oscillating as the wheel goes round. And then the screw back in there. Oops. Yeah, and we'll get that back in. So we're all back on there now. Brilliant. So most installs aren't as involved as that. That one had a peculiar challenge, I think is the word. But it's nice to know that they can be done. Just a bit of patience to work out a solution there. So what I love about the Lenz decoders is just their amazing motor control. Oops. Running on 127 speed steps, I'll take it down to speed step 1. You've got shunting speed on function 3, which will half the speed, and then function 4 on the decoder will remove any inertias, so acceleration and braking delay that you've programmed in will be ignored, so it makes the loco entirely responsive to the throttle. This was just a quick film. We do an awful lot more on our website, so we show things like function mapping and setting up performance of the decoders, so acceleration, deceleration, delays, and maximum speeds and things like that are all covered on our website. I really just wanted to look at how straightforward it should be to install a decoder. Obviously we did have the challenge of that dreaded speedo drive in this case, but that's a very unusual one. That's seems to be just this model, and I think they've rectified it on other models. I say that the Lenz decoders are super smooth and reliable, and actually competitively priced against other 8-pin decoders as well.